All right, and welcome to Betting from Home. This is Dave Jones. I'm your host of this show, Betting from Home. We're going to do NFL Week 12. And boy, this week is going to be a good week. It's Thanksgiving weekend. Hopefully you're staying safe with your coronavirus and all that stuff. Hopefully not spreading the virus. But, this show is not really about virus or anything like that. So we're going to get into Week 12. First off, we got Betting from Home. We got Twitter betting _home 87. That's Twitter. You can do myhomebet.com. And, of course, you can find me on any of your favorite podcast download sites. I also got YouTube. YouTube, I kind of do more of like a raw, it's kind of a raw edit. And then the podcast tends to be, hopefully, is a more polished, a little better thing that's kind of put together. Yeah, I worked hard on just trying to make my podcast better and better each week. Hopefully, I get some listeners and some people to stick around and be kind of real fans. Putting things together. I've decided that I'm going to try and do kind of like 3 different categories. I don't want to say love it, like it, hate it, but more like the best bet, middle bet, and worst bet. The best bet might not be like the most exciting game. It's going to be more like the game that I feel most strongly about. It's not going to be the games that I kind of go, the wishy-washy games. So my best bets, this week I got four best bets. But one thing I want to talk about with Week 12 is one of the reasons why I like Week 12, and starting from here to about Week 14, 15, you could kind of really take who's a good team and who's a bad team, who's running with momentum, whose momentum has switched, and with the extra spot being in the playoffs and only one team getting a bye, I think we're going to have competitive football through Week 16. Usually I would say Week 15 and 16 are kind of dump-off weeks for certain teams. I mean, you're going to have some teams that are just typically kind of really bad, and you get a feel for them, and they're still not good. You got the Jets this year just coming in terrible. You can pretty much always just bet against the Jets, and you're going to be happy with it. But really, the question is, how much are the Jets going to lose by? And that's kind of the unfortunate thing when it comes to the NFL this year with the Jets. How much are they going to lose by? It sounds kind of sad, but that's just the way it is. Anyways, going into my top best bet, my first, I don't want to say top best bet, but my first best bet is going to be the Arizona and New England game. We have a over-under of 50. We have Arizona only getting a 2.5 point favorite in this game, which I actually kind of found to be interesting with the 2.5 point favorite. I think immediately I picked Arizona to win this game, and I'm kind of surprised that it's not a bigger spread. I would have put it at a 7-point spread or an 8-point spread. But let's dive a little bit deeper into the stats and some of the points, and kind of look into why I kind of put a better bet at Arizona minus the 2.5. Honestly, I would go if the line changes, I would go as high as a minus like 5 or 6. I can't really say they're going to win by 7. But I think if you went 6, and it does get that close. My personal line would be the -6.5. I'm going to put it at -2.5 though. So let's kind of zoom in on some of the stats here. I start off by seeing that New England on average scores 20 points and lets out 23 points a game. And the last 5, there are three losses. They've won 2 of the last 5 games. Scoring 20, 23, 30, 21, and 6. So in my mind, New England is kind of scoring kind of low, and it's kind of reflecting that 20-point average as of late. In Arizona, I feel like Arizona is trending upwards. They did lose last week to Seattle, and it was one of the bets I felt like last week. I do remember picking Arizona to win as a underdog, but Seattle's a good team. New England is on the bad team side. Okay, Arizona, I believe, is on the good team side at 6-4. They're really starting to come into their own. They beat Buffalo, which is leaning towards them being a good team this year. They did lose to Miami, but Miami is kind of like on a weird upswing. So I kind of put that down as an interesting loss. They lost to Miami, though, 34-31. The week before that, they beat Seattle in overtime, and they handled Dallas 30-10. It seems like that they're beating bad teams. They beat San Francisco, they beat Washington, Detroit, Dallas, the Jets. They're beating bad teams by a wide margin. It's close versus good teams or better teams. And I kind of am putting the New England Patriots as a leaning towards bad team. And it's kind of hard to say that after 20 years of being a great team. But, hey, they lost Tom Brady. What can you say? Their defense is holding teams. New England's defense is holding teams to 23 points. That's still good, but they just can't seem to score. I have, in my mind, Arizona scoring right around 26, 27 points. I think they're gonna show up and kind of try and prove themselves. New England, I think, is gonna get somewhere around 17, 20 points. If you did 28 to 20, that'd be 48. The over-under for that game was 50. I'm going to go with the under. The under for that game is barely. I don't really like picking either the over or the under. I would do kind of a stay away on the total for the game, but I would take Arizona minus the 2.5. I originally wrote under, so I'm gonna stick with that under. It's really, will New England score like 24 points? If they hit 24 points, it will push it to the over. I think that Arizona, though, is going to really make a statement game and kind of make New England look bad. I'm going to quickly look up, does Arizona stop the run? That's kind of the question. I believe if you can stop Cam Newton, you're going to stop New England in their tracks. Rushing yards allowed per game. Rushing yards allowed per game, 261. So New England might, and maybe that's where some of the bookkeepers in Vegas are gonna kind of think that maybe New England, Cam Newton might run all over them. However, I think if you go into this game, you know that you have to stop Cam Newton. Like, that's my game plan. If that's my game plan, then Arizona should make that their game plan. And so I think Arizona is gonna come out on top by at least the 2.5 points. If it was, that's a field goal. Can they win by a field goal? I think so. Moving on, Cleveland, Jacksonville. Cleveland is another team that handles the bad teams. Do I consider Cleveland to be a good team? They're trending upwards. Do I consider Jacksonville to be a bad team? Absolutely. So that's why I'm taking Cleveland to win this game. Jacksonville, it is a 7-point spread. Do I feel comfortable with taking Jacksonville plus the points? Not really, but they do tend to keep games close. In the last 5, they lost to Pittsburgh 27-3, so that one doesn't really count, but that was versus a solid team, and we'll get into Pittsburgh a little bit later on. Let's see, Green Bay, they scored 20. Versus Houston, they scored 25. Versus the Chargers, they scored 29. Jacksonville has the ability to score a lot of points. I kind of like them plus 7 versus the Browns because the Browns recently have been kind of a bad team. They beat Philly, they beat Houston, they beat Cincy. The Browns will beat the bad teams. And they're actually holding bad teams to. They held Philly to 17, Houston to 7, and while Cincy did score 34 points on them, they held Indy to 23 points. Dallas always scores a lot of points. They held Washington. They held Dallas to 38 points, Washington to 20, Cincy to 30. So Cincy and Dallas are like the two teams that have scored a lot on them. There's always a couple of teams that each team has a team that they have trouble doing what they usually do against. Other than that, they've lost to better teams. Better teams: Las Vegas, Pittsburgh, and Baltimore. So I'm putting the Browns. The Browns, they're a team that they beat the bad teams. Are they going to beat a good team? No. So this year, they're better than they have been in the past, but still a bad team. As for my bet for that game, I'm leaning towards the over. I do think that Jacksonville is going to score a lot of points. I think this is going to be... Vegas has this game as an over-under 49. I actually see this game going into the 50s, 54. It's going to be like 30-24. I'm actually thinking it's going to be a high-scoring game. Kind of a shootout. In Jacksonville, I think keeps it within 7. I feel comfortable about those two types of game, or those two types of bets. I'm taking the over 49 and Jacksonville plus 7. Moving on down to Seattle versus Philly. This is not going to be a fun game. I won't even watch it. They have the Seattle favored by 5.5. Philadelphia has fallen apart this year. Carson Wentz has fallen apart. Their defense has fallen apart. Philadelphia is really on a downtrend. And Seattle, even though they don't have the best defense, Seattle is trending upwards, and they kind of been sticking at the top and beating the teams they should beat. Russell Wilson is doing awesome. With only a 5.5 point spread, I think I like Seattle plus 5.5. I don't really have much more to go over this game. I do put in my better bets. I like Seattle minus 5.5. As far as the over-under, at 50. I don't know. I almost see Seattle stomping them. They're going to get 30. Will Philadelphia score 20? That's the question, and I think that's kind of what Las Vegas or the bookkeepers are looking at. I lean towards the over, but boy, watch it go under because Philadelphia, they might only put up like 14 points this game, and I kind of feel like they're just gonna have a bomb of a game. They're kind of predicting a 27-23. I don't really think Philadelphia even gets that 23. I'm gonna go 30-14 at a 44. Moving on down, San Francisco versus Los Angeles Rams. I should say Los Angeles Rams versus San Francisco because San Francisco is at home. This is another game. It's not, in my mind, a very exciting game to watch, but San Francisco is injured. Jimmy Garoppolo is out once again, and every time Jimmy Garoppolo gets injured, San Francisco loses. Los Angeles Rams, I watched them play last week versus Tampa Bay. Jared Goff is slowly winning me over. He puts the ball in the playmaker's hands. I am actually leaning towards him being a good quarterback. Previously, I probably would have told you I didn't like Jared Goff. But watching him versus Tampa Bay last week, I've kind of swung around to liking him. San Francisco is on a 3-game losing streak versus New Orleans, Green Bay, and Seattle. And I think Los Angeles Rams, their defense is going to show up and stop them again. Without Jimmy Garoppolo, the San Francisco 49ers just don't know how to score points. 17 versus Green Bay and 13 versus New Orleans. Los Angeles Rams are keeping consistently over 20 points a game. It looks like right around 24 is what they average. Last 5, they scored 27, 23, 17, 24, and 16. I think the Rams, though, are trending upwards and will beat San Francisco. I'm going to take minus the 6.5 point spread. And once again, the over-under is kind of a hard one. They have it at 45.5, which is really low. And I think we're kind of betting in San Francisco getting like 14. Watch this be like a 27-14 game. That would put you at 41. So you're kind of counting on San Francisco to come up with some points here. I would lean towards the under, even under 45 points. Let's see. That kind of does it for my best bet. I only had 4 best bets. My next few here are going to be middle bets. They're games that I feel like I kind of know who's going to win, but maybe I'm not sure which way to bet on it. And I might not spend as much time on each of them. My best bets, I'm going to spend a little bit more time on. So we have, for my middle bet, Las Vegas and Atlanta. You have 2 teams here that are kind of middle of the road teams. And when you have 2 middle of the road teams, it's kind of hard to make a real strong prediction. the Raiders have looked good against Kansas City, but that's kind of like their thing. For some reason, they can beat up on Kansas City, and they came close to beating them last week. If Patrick Mahomes doesn't throw a touchdown in the last 19 seconds, we're actually talking an entirely different game. They definitely beat Las Vegas. Las Vegas is one of those teams, kind of like the Browns, where they beat the bad teams. They beat Denver. They beat the Chargers. They beat the Browns. And they're going to lose against the good teams, which kind of brings you to Atlanta. Is Atlanta a good team? I'm leaning towards yes, minus their defense, but maybe they kind of fix their defense a little bit. All right, a little bit interrupted there. We ordered a pizza tonight. Moving on, let's see. I was talking about Las Vegas and Atlanta. Atlanta is depending on whether or not Atlanta is a good team. Right? Atlanta started out on a 0-5. Then they beat Minnesota. Minnesota also a wishy-washy. Are they good or are they bad? That was 40-23. Okay, so the first five games, they scored 38, 40, 30, 30, and the first five games they scored 25, 39, 26, 16, and 16. So they kind of started off with a decent offense. Then they got beat up by Carolina, which has a good defense, and Green Bay, which had a better defense in the beginning of their season. I lean towards Atlanta being a bad team. And this is kind of why I'm putting this in the middle category. I can't just immediately pick Vegas to win. I want Vegas to win. Take Vegas to win minus the 3 points. It's only a 3-point spread. I like it. If you like Atlanta, take Atlanta plus the 3. It actually probably worked out in your favor just to take Atlanta as the money line since it's only a 3-point game. The money line on the game is positive 140, so you're going to win a slightly more money going with a positive 140 in regards to a negative 110. I don't like Atlanta to win the game, but I put it in the middle. I feel like Las Vegas wins that game. Another middle game is Green Bay and Chicago. Obviously, we know by now that I'm a Bears fan. I don't think the Bears win this game. I'm not going there at all with this game. The reason why I put it in the middle is the plus 8.5 on the Bears. Recently, the Bears have not covered. So I can't say, they're going to score a whole bunch. I can say that the defense is actually going to do something. The defense is the only thing holding this team together. The offense is wasting the defensive talent here, though. Green Bay, overall pretty good offensively. Defensively, I put them in kind of the bad defensive side. You could put them on the good defensive side. I think they're kind of a bad defense. I would take Bears plus the 8.5. It's kind of high for such a good defense. As far as the over-under 45, just move on. I'm not going to tell you to bet that. Tennessee, Indianapolis. I am growing less fond of Tennessee and more fond of Indianapolis, and that's why I put it in the middle. As far as the trending go, Tennessee has lost 3 of the last 5, and they've been kind of close games. Indianapolis has won 4 of their last 5, and I think is kind of catching their stride on offense. Phillip Rivers is good for a couple of interceptions, but he's also good for a couple of touchdowns. Defensively, they're solid. I kind of pictured Indianapolis and the Bears being the same team, except for Indianapolis can actually score some points. I'm actually leaning towards Indianapolis to win this game. Tennessee, Indianapolis is favored by 3. I like that. I like Indianapolis -3. However, you want to be careful with the -3. I wish it was 2.5 with the -3. If they win by a field goal, it's actually a push. So they would actually have to win by 4. So that's where it's kind of in the middle. If you were to parlay the -180 and pick them to win straight out, if you did a -180 and a -110, like another over-under or something else, you would come up with a positive money line. If I took the New England or the Arizona Cardinals minus the 2.5, and I would probably make this bet. It's something I'm going to consider. I'm making my own bet here. In Indianapolis with a -167. So a negative 167, and the -167 and a -110 actually comes out to be a positive 206. So yeah, 100 wins you 206 minus your bet, so you come out with $106. 10 would win you $20.60. $1 would win you $2.06 minus your wager. You gotta include your wager in that. So I kind of like putting Indianapolis in there, mix it in. Los Angeles Chargers and Buffalo is another middle game. Los Angeles Chargers, I don't really like them. They're 3-7. Buffalo, I was on their bandwagon in the beginning of the year. I thought that they were going to be better than they are. Last 5, though, they're only two out of their last 5 won. They're 3. I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong team there. They're 3 out of their last 5, and Los Angeles Chargers are 2 out of the last 5. A lot of people are putting a lot of praise on this Justin Herbert, which he is doing good. He's got 22 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Josh Allen is 21 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. So if we go down to really, so what's the problem with the Chargers? The Chargers are letting up 27 points and only scoring 26, which the Bills are scoring 27 and letting up 26. So this is going to be like a very close game. I put it in the middle only because I kind of just don't feel like that the Chargers can win. When I immediately looked at the game, my very first feeling was Buffalo's going to beat the Chargers. And then when I looked more into it, I'm like, it's going to be close. And a lot of times, if I just go off my first bet, it's actually been my best. If I overanalyze it, sometimes it falls apart. But if I just go bam, and then it's like, I got it. And those are my middle games. We got stay away games. I'm going to go real quick. Houston, Detroit, New York Giants, Cincinnati, and Washington, Dallas. Those 3 games, they're stay away games for the exact same 3 reasons. You got 1, 2, 3, 4. We got 6 bad teams playing against, 3 bad teams versus 3 other bad teams. You got a total of 6 bad teams in 3 different games. Once again, Houston, Detroit, Washington, Dallas, and New York Giants, Cincinnati. I don't know how to analyze the games, and I don't really like saying it, but they're just all three terrible teams. So we're just going to move ahead on it. Real quick, like the Giants are 3-7, Cincinnati's 2-7-1. Houston has fallen 3-7, Detroit 4-6, and New York Giants are 3-7, Cincinnati is 2-7-1. What was the other game? Washington, Dallas. Washington football team and Dallas Cowboys are both 3-7. Who knows? The last game I put as a stay-away game is kind of an interesting one because I want to watch this game. It's going to be a fun game. It's going to be the Baltimore at Pittsburgh game. They were originally scheduled for the Thursday night Thanksgiving, 8:20, 7:20, 8:20 Eastern Time, 7:20 Central. They were originally the night game. And this would have been a really fun game to cap off the night. Baltimore has like 5 or 6 COVID players. So that's one reason to stay away from it. It was a stay away game though before that because you have the undefeated Steelers, and a lot of people are putting a lot of Steeler hate. I'm personally a Steelers fan. A lot of people are putting Steeler hate because the Steelers have beat. Let's just take a look at their schedule. It's because of the schedule. That they beat the Giants, Denver, Houston, Philly, Cleveland. They did beat Tennessee. They beat Baltimore, which are the two good teams there. But then they beat Dallas, Cincinnati, Jacksonville. None of those teams are good, and I have to admit that. But they handled them. They handle them just as much as you would want them to handle them. If you go to, like, one of your favorite teams, everybody likes Kansas City. I just want to run off Kansas City real quick. And I'm just going to make a point that even your good teams play bad teams. Kansas City has beat Houston, Chargers. Baltimore is a good team. New England's bad. Vegas is okay, and they lost. Denver, the Jets, Carolina, bad team. And they beat Las Vegas, which is a mediocre team. So you look at all these, everybody has bad schedule. I mean, they have good, there are some teams that have to go through other really good teams, but most teams have a couple of stinkers that they could just put a check mark. The Steelers have Ben Roethlisberger, who is having a good comeback year. Last year he was injured. And you have to notice that their defense is doing kind of what you need them to do. They're holding these teams to like under 24 points. As a matter of fact, only Philadelphia scored over 24 points. They scored 29 points. Every other team has scored 24 or less points versus Pittsburgh. And let's see, Tennessee scored 24, Baltimore scored 24. Every other team has scored 21 or less. So Baltimore or Pittsburgh is holding the teams to low scoring. And isn't it kind of like what a good team does? They're a good team every year. They're a solid team every year. And there's no reason not to pick them. I can see why you don't like them. They don't win Super Bowls very often. Actually, I think over the years they have. Recently, they haven't. They're a better team historically with as far as winning Super Bowls and stuff like that. Recently, they haven't. But until Big Ben is out, I'm a Steelers fan. I think the Steelers will remain a good, solid team for another 2-3 years to come. And the reason why I put it as a stay away game, though, they're going up against Baltimore, another good team, and this is kind of one of the stayaways where I'm not really certain. I'm not really certain in how to bet it because they're two good teams. They're also two good defenses. Baltimore also has a good defense. So you have two good defenses against what could be two good offenses. Personally, I think Steelers win this game like 30-21. Lamar Jackson. He's a run first type of guy. He leads Baltimore. He leads Baltimore in rushing. Let me just pull up a stat here. He is Baltimore's leading rusher with 575 yards on 103 carries and 3 touchdowns. So if Lamar Jackson isn't running, then nobody's running on their team. Pittsburgh Steelers are holding teams to 103 yards on average rushing yards allowed per game. So basically, Pittsburgh is going to be able to make this a one-dimensional game. And it's going to come down to, can Lamar Jackson pass? He can. He's actually a very accurate passer. 15 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He's finding trouble finding the end zone this year, but he's proven himself to be an accurate passer. The spread is -4. I think they're expecting this to be a pretty low-scoring game. They're predicting 24-19, something like that. I'm picking 27. I said 27-21. I think originally the over/under. They're not even giving me one on this. Let's see if my other app has an over/under for me. They have an over/under. DraftKings has an over/under at 45. If Baltimore kicks it into gear, it's going to go the over. If not, it's going to go the under. Steelers, they can easily put up 20, 25, 26 points. However, Baltimore is only letting up 237 pass yards per game. That's pretty good. Rushing yards per game, 116. That's also pretty good. Averaging 19 points a game allowed. That's pretty good. Overall, they're actually pretty comparable teams. They're so comparable. Pittsburgh, 29 points per game. Baltimore, 26 points per game. They're so comparable, I say to stay away from it, enjoy it, and watch it. But if you really want to bet on it, take the Steelers minus the... I'm even back and forth on what you should do with it. Take the Steelers minus the 4 with the under. If you don't like my bet there, take Baltimore +4 with the over. If you really want the Steelers to lose, just go the opposite. I wouldn't blame you. Only because it's an even game. Go whichever direction you want. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up. Betting from home. My name is Dave Jones. You could tweet me at betting_home87. myhomebet.com. You can find me on YouTube and all your favorite podcast apps. And good night and good luck. Happy holidays.